his 39th birthday, by the way. Oh, Cameron, time and place, eh? But you know what? I digress. Lena, I hope you're good. Hench, what's going on? We're going to go 45 minutes or less, I promise. Bad timekeeper, bad chairman, Cameron, but not this time, I promise. Lennart, did you get enough questions and comments in, mate? I appreciate it each and every single time. As always, before these live chats / Q&As, if you've got a question or anything that you want me to bring up, F1 or otherwise, drop it in on the community tab, because it just makes my life just that little bit easier. 5 of you watching concurrently, and I am grateful, as always, ad infinitum, to each and every single one of you. What are you saying, little grey squirrel? I hope you are good. Happy New Year to each and every single one of you, if I haven't said that already. It was a bit techie this off season, hasn't it? I don't know how I feel. I was going back and forth with Baxty and Shez on the old shakedown, and I almost seen that deliveries are going to start to get revealed in like February. I think February 5th and 6th. I want to say February the 14th potentially for Ferraris. I've got them all in my calendar hitherto, because it's going to get techie. Or is it? Because these are oftentimes damp squids, aren't they? Let's have a look what it says. So Sauber and Williams are on the 5th of February. Looking in his old calendar, isn't he, Cameron? Aston Martin livery reveal on the 12th of February. On the 13th thus far. That's the biggie. That's the only big one worthy of note that's been announced, in my humble opinion. And that, of course, is Scuderia Ferrari, who did something very interesting last year with theirs. Let us see the cars proper that are going to be racing in 2024 out on track. Let's hear them and smell them and get a bit tactile with them, you know? Maybe you don't know. I don't know. Livery's a bit dodgy though. Shez says he likes the cheeky livery. I will be tuned in. We'll be tuned in here for the live liveries. But Mercedes is the one that everybody's looking to see, right? Oh, what do you guys think? Will they actually see? Will we get to see a proper 2024 livery, or are they all going to be postulating, showing us, like selling us dummies as they usually do? I don't know. But anyway. Yeah, hit the like, little grey squirrel, you're an absolute legend. Hit the like, por favor, because every little bit helps with the channel this year. And listen, this year is the year that we're going to go absolutely purple. A lot's changing in the bloody in the content creation landscape, especially as it pertains to F1. The content creators going away. The GOAT, that is Blake Break F1, former performance engineer of Max Verstappen and Checo Perez and Paul di Resta. He's going away for a bit, and the space will be poorer for his absence. Let me just say that for now, because Blake is analytical minds don't come much goatier than the chap that is Blake. Absolute legend. And then you got the Engine Braking podcast that he does with Engine Mode 11, and he's going to be a bit more sporadic on that. The space will be a lot poorer for Blake, going off to do some work with WEC and Lamborghini, but I don't hate it. He's almost Blake's talents are almost lost on this YouTube game. But I mean, I'll be sadder for less Blake and less. It's go on then. Let me get 0 pods. Don't even do it, hench. Imagine if Mercedes reveal a car that's got 0 pods. I will lose my SH1T. Go on then. Let's talk about this Oscar Lewis comparison, because it's techie. You know what? I'll set this up like this. I've heard it on many occasions said that men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Ball feathers. What are we talking about? Numbers need context, and sometimes you've got to do a rebase and a cheeky recalibration. And this is what you've got to do in this instance. This is what I'm talking about, man. Here's what I mean when I say this. You guys can see this, hopefully, on the left-hand side of your screen. This is what's being fettered out there in the social media space. And this is ultimately what's triggered me to discuss this on today, Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton's birthday. And that feels wrong. It feels like, I don't know. You guys know me. I'm happy to criticise Lewis Hamilton, my driver, when there is criticism warranted, right? But this is one of those times when I've got to lean into my Lewis Hamilton bias. I don't think it's a bias. This is me talking objectively to these numbers. So here's what they've done. This is what I keep seeing being bandied around on social media. Lewis Hamilton in 2007, his rookie year against two-time champion, one of the GOATs, Fernando El Plan Alonso, scored 109 points flat, if I can get my words out. Fernando Alonso equaled him on 109 points. Lewis Hamilton beat Fernando. He didn't win the championships, obviously in 2007. Kimi Raikkonen was your champion. There's a 1 point difference between him and Fernando El Plan Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton trumped Fernando El Plan Alonso based on count back that year, but they both finished on 109 points. They keep doing this thing. This narrative around Oscar Piastri's rookie year being comparable to Lewis Hamilton's. It's been bandied around as a function of the points in absolute terms. I'm going to get to your guys' comments, but I need to address this. We need to rebalance this equation of fakery and black magic, because it's nonsense. So look on the left of your screen. 97 points is what Oscar Piastri got last year. Now, I was going to bring up a sexy waterfall and explain to you all this, but I don't want to bore you guys to death, because it actually would. Right, here's what I've done. Here's the two key differences that you've got to understand between Oscar Piastri's points and Lewis Hamilton's points. The first one, in 2007, there were 17 Grand Prix. Last year, in 2023, there were how many? 23. So, of course, you've got to rebase Oscar Piastri's points for 17, right? Take his points total, 97, divide that by 23 and times by 17. That's your first calc. Second calc, how are you going to compare? You guys can see the asterisks. Maybe you can't. The point scoring system is different in 2023 than it was in 2007. So you guys will know 2023, you get 25 points for first, you get 16, and then it's for, I can't even remember after that. I always struggle. Such a 25, 18. 15 for third, fourth gets 12, fifth gets 10. These are all big points tallies for like also runs, right? Sixth gets 8, seventh gets 6 points, eighth place gets 4 points, ninth gets 2, and finally the final point scoring place per the points scoring system as at 2023. 10th place gets 1 point. That wasn't the case in 2007. What do you mean? Only the first 8 positions scored points. It went something like this: 10 points for first place, of course. So again, already you're comparing apples and apples and oranges. Even if first place gets 25 points and in 2023, and first place in 2007 gets 10 points, what are we doing here? There is a fundamental difference in the bloody point scoring calc. And I say all that to say this. In 2007, on victories alone, under the new point scoring system, Lewis Hamilton would have he won 4 races, he would have scored, as near as makes a difference, 100 points. So that alone takes him clear of Oscar Piastri. What are we doing here? I will talk to the Newey. I just want to do numbers for the first 5 minutes here. So look, 2007, you scored 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 8th place gets the final point. Look here. It's a joke, isn't it? Right. What I did, just because I'm nodding, I'm a bit of a nerd, and sometimes I like to rebase and rebalance and recalibrate numbers sometimes. All I've done here is rebalance Oscar Piastri's numbers. He's 97 points total for those two factors, and he gets 22.17 points. It doesn't make perfect sense, right? But if you're going to do a like for like comparison, you need to account for those two things: the fact that in 2023 there were 23 races, and in 2007 there were only 17, and then again recalibrate for the scoring system. Oscar Piastri doesn't have 97 points. He's got 22 points, as plays Lewis Hamilton's 109. What are we talking about here, peddlers? If it's a points conversation, then we've got to do properly. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie, some may say. Absolutely not true. Let's look at the numbers. Let's understand the whys and the hows and not do this low-hanging journalistic trope nonsense that doesn't make sense. I know it's off-season, and I know we want something to talk about, but this, to compare those two numbers in those terms without doing that rebalancing calc is an absolute nonsense. I'm a qualified accountant, and if I talked about something without rebalancing and recalibrating, I would lose the letters after my name. It's irresponsible and it's ridiculous. I just thought that was important to say. Plus, that notwithstanding, you've got to talk about the cars, you've got to talk about the circumstance, you've got to talk about the fact that Sir Lewis Hamilton on his birthday in 2007 was an absolute force of nature, something different. There was something, he was coming and nobody was going to stop. He was just, it was, there were intangibles at play there. It was different. The quality of car that McLaren was, that Lewis Hamilton drove in 2007 was something very different to the McLaren in 2023. We've got to talk to that and probably want to rebase it the other way if you're going to do the compare and contrast. Oscar Piastri didn't have a hope in hell of beating Max Verstappen for the title, but then, I don't know, if you rebalance it the other way, if Oscar Piastri couldn't beat one Lando Norris in terms of his race pace and ultimately his points haul in 2023, why are you going to tell me that you could have beat Fernando Alonso, two-time champion, fresh off the back of consecutive Michael Schumacher beatings? What are we talking about here? Let's be serious, man. I don't know. Sometimes the world of F1 is a bit, it can wallow in the waters of fugazi and daftness. It's just daft for no reason, isn't it? This is apples and oranges, and the two don't bear comparing, is the honest truth. But again, in the off season, people need something to talk about, and publications are gonna engage in this nonsensory in a way that's meaningful, which makes no sense to me. But hey, I digress. It's I'm disappointed that you even took the time to. But Bogle, Bogle. I was going to sing it out then for a second. Bogle, brilliant name, brilliant dancer, by the way. Bogle. Sometimes you got to talk to it. As soon as I saw this, I just felt outraged. Like, to be fair to these guys, they have put a little footnote right explaining the point, but it's just like, got to explain it. You know why I have to explain it, Bogle? Here's why I have to explain it, right? And this is what I've been considering more and more in the off season. There is a level, you can't assumed knowledge here. Because listen, we know that 25-30% of the viewing population of F1 in 2023, 2024 now have only been around for the last 24 months. They won't have done their due diligence and won't have been around for the 2007 season. So they'll just look at this and just take it as written, right? Take it on face value. And I can't have that. I can't have that. Got to do some due diligence here and fact checking and correcting, because nobody else is going to do it, Bogle. That's the honest truth. So whilst I don't want to engage this stuff meaningfully, and you see my tongue very firmly in my cheek when I talk about this stuff, sometimes you've got to get a bit forensic about this stuff, like you can't, I don't know, left unchecked. A lot of the current day viewing public will take this and say, wow, Oscar Piastri was very close in terms of his rookie season to Lewis Hamilton. No, it wasn't. Behave. It was a brilliant season, by the way. I say that to say this. Oscar was absolutely incredible last season. And listen, by the way, I haven't even bloody talked about the sprint race numbers, the additional points that were completely out of scope, that didn't even exist in 2007 for Lewis Hamilton to get via sprint races and fastest lap finishes, which I think are a bit of a joke, by the way. I wouldn't even mind if we went back to that old number system, not even the 10-8, the one before that. I wouldn't mind seeing first place get 10, second place get 6, third 4, fourth 3, fifth 2, and the last numbers go to 6th place with 1 point. I kind of prefer, not to put my Bernie Eccleston old diehard cap on for a second, but I think I prefer the stakes then, right? Going to see people take some serious risks to get into those top 6 and then to get into first place, no less. I feel like I've been listening to the old the FFS podcast with Coulthard and Eddie Jordan probably a bit too much, because those guys were talking fairly extensively about that, the need to overtake on track to kind of propel F1 to the next level. It's interesting, isn't it? Well, let me get through these other topics before I miss. But yeah, I needed to address that Oscar stuff, because I just thought it was a bit like, well, I mean, what are we doing? What are we trying to say here with those numbers? When you hear people talk about stats don't lie, men lie, women lie, numbers, that bogus, man. If you don't know what you're on about, then that's something that you will say. Sometimes you got to understand the context, the hows and the whys behind the number, and that's what we're here to do on this channel. Like, I can't, Bogle, nobody else is going to do it. You're going to hear people come out and say, well, Oscar Piastri was the best rookie since Lewis Hamilton. Well, not maybe he was, but based upon what? Don't put that forth as your exhibit A if that's your argument, because I just can't have it. Happy birthday, Lewis Hamilton. Before I get into this Horner versus Newey stuff, I reflect on Lewis. Listen, what does you guys know what Lewis means to me? Like, here's the debate. Can I appreciate racing sufficient to where I can rate Max Verstappen and what he's doing in the present day, and still have a deep-seated, embedded, inherent almost love for Lewis Hamilton and all that he's done for the sport and culture and diversity, and his God-tier laps at Singapore 18 and Fuji, like all this other stuff that Lewis has nailed? Of course you can. If you're a fan of the sport, and if you ingest greatness and progress, and I mean, 2007 season that we just touched on, right, was one of the greatest seasons, full stop, that I've ever seen, let alone rookie season. You don't just come into it. Listen, some of the things that you saw Fernando Alonso do last season at the ripe old age of 510, 42, fat check. If he's still racing like that at that age, how strong was he at like 26, 27 in 2007 when a rookie Lewis Hamilton was in the same machinery? Strong is the answer. Fernando Alonso doesn't come to play. So I don't care about the tyre test and whatever there was Bridgestones in GP2 the previous season. So Lewis had more time and due diligence and had a better understanding of the tyre properties going into the 07 season. I know all that. That's all true. But the deck was stacked massively against him, right? Beat Michael Schumacher twice in 2 consecutive seasons. That's who Fernando Alonso was going into 2007. You know, looking back, I think it's mad that Lewis Hamilton and Anthony even thought it feasible for Lewis's development as a rookie to put him in the same car as Fernando and Plan Alonso, let alone expect him to challenge. It's crazy talk. And yet, who was the crazy one? Because ultimately, Lewis Hamilton, and barring bloody China and a couple of others, you would have been further down the road and potentially been the only rookie to win a world championship in his first season in 2007. That is crazy. And nobody's going to apply any sort of revisionist history, or you can't recalibrate for those numbers. Barring China and barring some bloody gearbox issue in Brazil, Lewis Hamilton would have been further down the road from Fernando Alonso, not even level up. That, peddlers, is absolute bonkers. What's going on, Henry? I hope you're right. Evo Tech, big ups. Osaka, Japan, Evo Tech, that's techie, that is. I love that. Yeah, Bogle, I'm telling you, people can't put some respect on that 2007 season. I know most of you guys have watched it who were in the chat. Foster, bro, those McLarens back then were ridiculous, right? The silver and the red levels. But that season, I will say this again because it's an important point, on Lewis Hamilton's 39th birthday today. That 2007 season is absolutely nothing to play with. Listen, if we're talking about greatness, and you guys know that I love a good greatness conversation, you judge greatness, as my old man would always say, by how the person rubs shoulders, how they fare when they come up against other greats. I know Fernando Alonso to be great, and even greater back then in like 2007 when he was fresh off the back of 2 consecutive beatings of Schumi, the Red Baron, the Reagan Meister, beat him twice at the age of like 25, 26, like, and then Lewis Hamilton goes and takes that fella's lunch in his rookie season. Mate, what are we doing? The only thing I will say about that, though, 39. Are we going to have an old man conversation here? Menace, what's going on? The only counter to that, if we put on our 2024 glasses for a second, F1's a young man's game, right? Particularly in 2024. If you go back to your like 1950s and you want to start talking about Juan Manuel Farino and Fangio, Hawthorne, Graham Hill, they're all winning championships well into their 40s, if not 50s. Fangio, I think. These like were old guys. But I think if you go into like the postmodern day era, like V10s, 2000s, I think you're going to see more and more. And listen, there will always be a LeBron and a Tom Brady and a Lewis who are capable of winning races younger. But you hear Lewis talk quite openly and honestly about the rigors and the travails of having to do like 24 races in less than 52 weeks. That's bonkers. That's more than like one race every other week all around the world. The F1 circus will take its toll more on the Alonsos and the Lewis Hamiltons at the ripe old age of nearly 40 than it will on the Max Verstappens and the Charles Leclerc, just by virtue of the fact that they're younger. Has Lewis Hamilton let himself go? Absolutely not. See the pictures of him with a bloody six-pack and he's always in the gym or whatever, but there's only so much you can do to offset the ever moving, the ever descending chariot of Father Time, right? There's only so much you can do. So I say all that to say that this is a matter of when, not if. Now I'd argued before that maybe some of Lewis's mistakes you could chalk up to Father Time and getting a bit old and diminishing responses, and I think that's speculation in hindsight. No, it's hard to do this. I love to do the hows and whys and start to attribute causality and all this stuff, but it ultimately is all speculation. And probably in retrospect, I was probably a bit too soon in that, in being so definitive in that judgment. I don't want to do the Max Kellerman thing and start talking about Tom Brady who's going to fall off a cliff, and then like 6 years later he's still winning Super Bowls. Exception and not the rule, eh? But listen, the sand timer, say all that again to say that the sand timer on Sir Lewis Hamilton's career as a competitive F1 driver it's turned, right. It's done one of those. You only get so much time in this game, and sadly it's a young man's game. The most underappreciated athlete in all of sports. Moz, you might be onto something there. Some people would argue that he's the greatest athlete, but listen, everything's it's important to contextualize everything, especially in terms of age and time and place, right? And Lewis is 39. There's a stat that I used to trot out talking about how many people had ever. Okay, so there's two stats. How many people have won a championship at Lewis Hamilton's age, 39 now or older? In the last 50 years, say, there's not many. I always forget, it's like Prost, it's Mansell, it's Mario Andretti. Damon was quite old when he won his in 96, but there's not a lot. Old F1 drivers over the last 50 years don't tend to win F1 championships. And listen, if Lewis is somebody, if there's anybody that's going to butt that trend, it's going to be one Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton. But let's see, he needs the machinery underneath him first, and it's too depressing and too early on in the 2024 year to start talking about the depression that is the Mercedes situation. So I'll leave that for a live chat. Excuse me. God, it's choking me. It's choking me up literally to talk about that Mercedes fiasco. You guys have heard me say this. I think there's a question on this, so I'll keep my powder dry. Yeah, there's isn't it, Alex? I'm a talk to, bro. I mean, listen, save the comments. I'll come back to the comments because I'm going to do some reading of anybody that's got anything that they want me to address. Community tab, each and every single time. Always, I will reiterate. Alex, reality, mate. You just tuned in, haven't you? You didn't hear me talk about the Father Time thing. I was going to talk about let's talk about Horner and Newey. Because it's techie, isn't it? Adrian Newey's missus is talking up. Isn't she not happy at Red Bull's perceived inability to attribute all of the success that the RB19 achieved directly and only to her husband, Adrian Newey? Now, a couple of different people have come out and said different things. Christian Horner talked about Adrian Newey glowingly, but said, you know what, Adrian does delegate. It's not Adrian and Adrian 1 that needs to be on the receiving end of some good news here, of some pats on the backs for all their hard work that they've done over the past 24 months. And the truth is, if you speak to guys and girls that are on the paddock and speak to guys and girls that have worked in that Red Bull garage, a lot of them will tell you that, you know what, Adrian Newey, as he gets older, that he delegates more. Again, always the ideation genius, the guy with the pen that understands aero, that sees aero flow in real time with his pen and pad, right? And let's not understate that. Absolutely, he has had a very, very big hand in Red Bull success over the past 24, 36 months, for sure. I mean, his record speaks for itself. 25 championships, McLaren back in the bloody day, Williams back in the day, dominant cars also. Adrian Newey is GOAT settings. Absolutely, nobody's going to take that away from him. But does Adrian Newey have a team underneath him who he delegates to, who contribute to the ideation discussion, who contribute to actioning some of Adrian Newey's plans in real time? Absolutely. So I don't know why I should bring up the quotes directly, because again, we like to do a cheeky fact check. But I'm not sure why Adrian Newey's missus is disagreeing with what Christian Horner said, which is basically that Adrian Newey has a team around him that also helps him, that has also contributed to the success of the RB19 and RB18 over the past 24 months now. But what does this mean, peddlers? And again, if you put on your sensationist cap and start to read into things, is this the end of Adrian Newey's tenure, or the beginning of the end of it? Are we starting to see fissures between the big wigs, Marku last year, bloody Christian Horner and Adrian Newey now? I'm not so sure. I wouldn't do that just yet. Now, of course, Adrian Newey, and again, if you listen to the FFS podcast, legends of the game, Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard, who, by the way, had Adrian Newey and talked to him about, had Adrian Newey on their podcast and talked to him very recently about all of this stuff. When are you leaving? Have you got any other plans? What takes your interest after F1? The answers to those questions, by the way, he responded to each and every single one of them respectively. I don't currently have plans to leave. I'm not going to be there forever. Interest outside of the sport, again, it's all about boating. The America's Cup he spoke about. Didn't mention any fissures with Christian Horner. Spoke about Ron Denison having fissures, and that's ultimately why he left McLaren for Jaguar/Red Bull back in day. I don't think we should read too much into that. Again, table setting. The context is off-season, and we are wanting for headlines. I keep seeing various publications trying to drum up interest by talking about George Russell's statements. Again, we will talk about that in future live chats, I promise. I don't want to do it today. My emotional fortitude and robustness isn't sufficient. Oh, Menace, don't do it to me, bro. See, this Menace, how they found 2.5 seconds? Does that, Menace, check this out. See, I didn't see the headline. But you know, you've got to just common sense check something. Go back to rules of first principle. Does that even sound feasible? I don't want to do that. I don't want to kill the Mercedes conversation to death, but 2.5 seconds around what track? Because they're different. What, around Monaco or around like it's just I don't know what they're on about. Silverstone, mate, I just don't know. They need to show me before I start to have this blind faith again in Mercedes, because I've done that. I've been on that. You guys saw my reaction to the delivery last year. It's black, they're gonna win, it looks incredible, it looks so fun. I'm not doing that again this year. I've been doing that for 24 months and Mercedes keep making an idiot of me. I can't do it again. I just can't do it again. I'm not prepared to. Absolutamente not prepared to. I cannot, and I shall not, and I will not. But it is an interesting conversation, because then again, from the outside, everything looks hunky-dory at Red Bull, right? You see Adrian Newey hobnobbing with Christian Horner. I would advise you guys to go and watch or listen to that podcast even. FFS with Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard with guest Adrian Newey. Adrian seems like the type of guy, you know, you have those like very intelligent guys at school, gifted even, genius settings, who ultimately just want to be one of the lads. That for me is what Adrian Newey comes with. That's what he presents as. That's the proposition that he offers as a character. And I think this is the genius of Christian Horner, right, in terms of his man management and his personnel management. He understands that. And what team on the grid offer if that's your MO, what better team on the grid than Red Bull, right? They're like the cool, always playing the music in the pit garage, like, I don't know, or like the sexy branding outside of Red Bull Racing, Red Bull Group. They're always doing daredevil stunts. The bloody, you know what I mean? Sponsoring all these extreme sports and extreme athletes. What better organisation than Red Bull Racing for a god tier level geek who sees aeroflow on pen and just using pen and paper? What better team / organisation for that person to join if they just want to be loved and one of the lads? Hearing Adrian Newey with Eddie Jordan and DC, by the way, who do talk very frequently with They Effin' Blind a lot, Bad Language Central. And then I've never heard Adrian Newey drop an F-bomb. Mate, he was on this podcast like F-bombing for England. It's like, who's this guy? He just wants to be loved as Adrian Newey, and I think that's what Red Bull have offered to him. He's not going anywhere soon, I don't think. And he spoke about Ferrari, numerous approaches down the years, and other teams no doubt will have tried to steal Adrian Newey. So acutely aware of his ability to add value. He's a key man. I think the better question to ask around, not is Adrian Newey the principal determinant in Red Bull's, in terms of action in Red Bull's master plan, as far as the RB19 and RB20 are concerned over the past 24 months. I think the question that you want to ask, could they have done what they've done without him? I'm not saying that I think he's more the ideas guy than the doer. He holds the pen, no pun intended, on the ideation phase, right? And then he will delegate the actioning of the aero stuff to his team of minions underneath him. A la Dan Fallows, as an example. But that's not to say that ideation phase could have happened sans Adrian Newey. That's what I understand from them. But I digress. What's going on, Hanny? Happy New Year. W14 and W13 with the paint job. I know sometimes things, it looks fast. It's just nonsense words that have come out my mouth a many time. That's nonsense. Do me a favour, guys. 38 of you watching concurrently. Do me a favour. Smahoosh that like button, because it all helps. We're looking to go purple this year in the YouTube content creation space. Lots of good things coming down the pipe, I promise you. Don't want to announce anything just yet, but it's going to get very techy. Muzz, I think Mercedes battles with McLaren and Ferrari. I don't disagree with you, Muzz. Right, let me get to some comments. How deep are we? 37 minutes. I'm going to go for another 15 max. I need to be better with my timekeeping, lest I wish to get and divorce in the year that is 2024. Nobody wants that. Go on then. And again, remember, guys, anytime I do one of these, which will hopefully become more frequently over the next few weeks and months, that's the plan. At least one a week. I want to start doing 2 and 3 as and when time permits. But I will drop a post on the community tab. If you want me to raise something or broach a topic, drop it on the community tab. Tire Smoke 86 says, I don't see the sheer impact and awe in Oscar that Lewis had, but he's very talented and definitely has the potential to be at the top. I would like to see more overall comparison with Oscar to everything that Lewis, to all the grid, which is more clearly, and also cover other areas, not just driving, career choices, etc. How they managed. Oh, that's a very good point from Tire Smoke. I don't even know how much I want to talk today. It's techie. All right, look. So, okay, Lewis. Here's the thing, right? For all of Lewis's achievements on track, I have a feeling when all said and done, he might be remembered more. That's not true. I think what might be more meaningful between Lewis's on-track and off-track contributions is his off-track ones. I think that might be Lewis's legacy, and he's talked to that already, right? As far as decisions, and what Tire Smokes are leading to there is obviously the Alpine shenanigans. I'll say this without being too controversial around Oscar's decisions. I understand from, I mean, you only need to listen to Otmar. My guy Peter Windsor did a fantastic interview with Otmar, and he touched on that whole fiasco. Go and check it out on the Peter Windsor channel. And Otmar's still, he's not even at Alpine anymore, but it doesn't sit well with him. Smash the like for me, Pad. There's Port of Favor, 46 if you're watching concurrently, only 16 likes. Still doesn't sit well with Otmar. In Otmar's mind, imagine, even, okay, so the negatives from Oscar's perspective that you shelved for 24 months, right? Coming off the back of only one of a few, George Russell included in that. Lewis, I think, Nico Hulkenberg too. To win GP2, now F2, and F3 back-to-back in their maiden seasons. Oscar Piastri is only one of that is not, it's nothing to be scoffed at. And F1 is always going to be, as far as achievement in F1, again, we've just talked about Father Time. You've only got so many years, right? 20 max, maybe? 20, 25, maybe? Good years in F1. So to sit Oscar Piastri on the shelf for 24 months on the back of back-to-back F2, F3 wins, it sounds like, even as I'm saying it, it sounds bonkers, right? It's really, really hard to reconcile. So that's the negative that ultimately pushed Oscar Piastri away. And he was second string always to Fernando Alonso. Before Fernando Alonso did secured his surprise move to Aston Martin, Oscar was going to get benched again for the next year. And in Oscar's mind, that's what pushed him away. Just because all of a sudden, like, Alonso's gone and got this Aston Martin deal, don't, like, talk to me. Don't just assume that you're going to sub me in off the bench. I say that with my Oscar Piastri cap on. But nevertheless, from the other side, and again, there's two sides to every story, right? Or three. There's their side, there's his side, there's her side, and there's the truth. But from Alpine's perspective, F1 seats aren't cheap, even reserve drivers, right? So in their minds, they've invested all this time and money, all this seat time in Oscar Piastri. And as far as they're concerned, that's made it sufficiently clear, right? That stuff is sunk cost. That money is money that you're not going to get back. So, not Marsaf now would say, well, at the very least, you owe us to hang around maybe. But F1 is very cutthroat. And herein lies, I suppose, the critique of Alpine's management structure, that maybe they are a little bit naive in the way that they conduct their activities and the rules of engagement. Maybe. I've heard it said. Head on. What a joker. Henron. My apologies, sir. I'm daft. Without Adrian Newey, Red Bull would not have had success without him and struggle great. Well, this is the hypothesis, isn't it, Henron? This is the hypothesis. I think you'd have to do two recalibration calcs. You assume what the first is assume that Red Bull don't have Adrian Newey, but then the second is to assume that Red Bull don't have Adrian Newey and somebody else does. What's the damage in the second scenario is much more material than the first, right? Imagine Adrian Newey sat at Ferrari or Mercedes, because Ferrari keep trying to get him, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to get him again before he retires and offer him very favourable terms. Eddie Jordan, in fact, they reminisced on this podcast that I keep citing that Eddie Jordan at the time wrote Adrian Newey a check with a value on there that was something to the effect of $500,000. That's how bad, and that was like 1998 or whatever. That's how valuable Adrian Newey is. Like, he's well respected. So you might be onto something there, Henron. This whole Oscar versus Lewis comparison is apples to oranges. That's the point that I'm making, Stevens D. Both had very different levels of car performance, 15 years apart, and regulations majorly changed. This is the point. Very, very good points that I've tried to highlight already in this pod. Rules instead of time testing, yeah, all that good stuff. It's a very different era. Henron, once again, Adrian Newey, read that one. The whole Henron, Oscar is close and will surpass in due time. He's also got great potential to go further. Oof, that's techie. Me and Shez have been arguing. Shez is a massive Oscar Piastri fan. And I argued at some point in and around the middle of last year's season that Oscar Piastri fans want to slow their roll because he's not beating Lando Norris anytime soon, I'll tell you that much. Lando Norris, sometimes there is like a proper force of nature like a Lewis Hamilton, but then there is a need for F1 fans to try and pick the next one before time, right? Is it going to be? We did it to Max before. We did it to Max before time. Max was very young, and like in 2015 when he first came into F1, he was crashy. He was very young and immature. Raw, the talent was there, absolutely, but people tried to put the crown on his head a bit too soon, right? 2016, he wasn't ready. It took like 5 years and a car and development and understanding and technical nous and maturity. And then all of a sudden he's posing the likes of Lewis and Charlotte, a humongous problem to where he's probably going to go on to win even more than 3 championships now. But you kind of got to let these guys, it's hard to judge. Don't see Lewis Hamilton in 2007 and think that you can judge a driver critically in their rookie season. It's not fair. And I think that's what people are doing. People are trying to crown Oscar Piastri the next one before time. Race management is key for Oscar Piastri. And again, I almost think it's similar to Lewis in 2007. I almost think it's unfair to judge him going up against Lando Norris. Are you joking? In the first, not even just in his rookie season, in his like sophomore year, like it's a joke. Like, Lando is nothing to be played with, and you'll see it again next year. Oscar will have brilliant performances. He was epic in qualifying, tracking on average, I think, Lando to a 10th or 2 lap. That's ridiculous in your rookie season in quali. The pace is there. The raw talent is there for Oscar Piastri to work with. Absolutely. McLaren have a diamond, not so much in the rough. He's really, really good, but to beat Lando Norris over the course of a season, mate, that's different. That is different. Mohammed says, here's a question for you. Team LH here, context 2. Please spare me comment section. Right. Why do we feel, says Mohammed, as though Mercedes has the most potential to catch Red Bull over the winter compared to McLaren or Ferrari, who would be more or less keeping consistent with their car concepts for 2024? Techie. It's a really good question from Mohammed, that, and I've been on here a number of times arguing against, if not just because of the time requisite for Mercedes to embed their new design philosophy and then start iterating for it. They're behind to the tune of 48 months for me. It's not just 2 years that they've lost, because you've got to add together the 2 years that they've lost and 2 years that the other teams have gained on their learnings and development and understanding about the fundaments of their design philosophies. 48 months is a lot. Listen, I've said this, man, and I'll say it again. If Mercedes nailed this next year and Lewis Hamilton wins an 8th, it'd be one of the greatest underdog stories, the greatest comeback stories that I've ever seen in sports history. I'll say that much. Honestly, it's improbable. It's improbable. That's the amount of time, the amount of distance that they've got to catch back up. And I honestly don't see it happening. Not that it hasn't. You guys have seen the Brawn GP documentary. Miracles can happen in F1 still in 2024, but sadly, they happen less and less. So I don't know. I'd love to see it, man, but I just I don't know. I think Mohammed's probably onto something. The McLaren, if you're going to put your life on one of those other teams, not named Red Bull, to challenge for the Drivers' Championship next year in Constructors, counter to everything that I've said around this time last year, I think it'd have to be McLaren. McLaren or Ferrari. I think Mohammed's onto something there. It's I still think, you guys remember me saying that I thought Ferrari could come good last year? This time last year, I thought Charles Leclerc was going to be capable of something, but I don't think Charles Leclerc's that guy anymore, you know? I'll be honest with you. Not yet. Not going to like condemn him to death or anything or say that he's not Rubens Barrichello by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Charles Leclerc, if he's going to become a championship contender, has further to go than at least I first thought. You remember this time, so in 2022, the start of, I want to say at Bahrain potentially, there was a couple of race wins from Charles Leclerc early on, and there was one that involved, so you remember the DRS chicken? That was some serious racecraft on show from Charles, in my humble opinion. And I took that. You know, sometimes you have these times where you see, I don't know, take 2016 Brazil from Max. These times when a future champion makes it very clear that that's what they're on, that this is their line of trajectory, and that's what their destiny is, if destiny is such a thing that you believe in. And I took that instance of DRS chicken and the way that Charles dominated a Max Verstappen, a one-time champion at the time, Max Verstappen, off of race restarts in a way that Lewis couldn't do at Abu Dhabi on older rubber, by the way. I just took that as, I thought that was proof positive that Charles would be the next one after Lewis and after Max. And I think I was premature. Sometimes you've got to go back and fact check yourself, right? Revise your analysis and opinions, and I think I was a bit premature, if not because Charles just still made, as fast as he is, this isn't me saying that he's slow, he's no Rubens Barrichello or Ralph Schumacher. He's just not that. They're not in his league. He's a god tier driver, and if I suppose I'll term it this way, if you're going to gun to the head and I need somebody to put in a quali lap and drop it on pole on any of a track not named Monaco, I might pick Charles Leclerc if I'm feeling brave, if I'm gambling. But in race conditions, no, I'm giving it to Charles. What, before I give it to Max and Lewis? Charles is like and Lando probably, and George. In a race, equal machinery, Charles like third, maybe fourth, maybe on the grid currently. I'll be honest. I don't know. I wish Charles had Carlos's mentality. You know, Muz, you make the point, yeah. I've argued many a time that I wish you almost want to fuse the best traits of a Carlos Sainz and the speed of a Charles Leclerc and the Nelson assertiveness and the race IQ in real time of a Carlos. Do you think Charles Leclerc would have done what Carlos Sainz did in Singapore and realised that it was mission critical in real time to give Lando Norris that DRS, to use him as the meat in a Ferrari and Mercedes sandwich? Incredible. Charles would never have done that. Charles doesn't have that in his locker, I don't think. Just don't think he has that in his locker, but hey, I digress. Henron says, I think Charles will jump ship if Ferrari do. I think the rumour is that he's about to sign a like a 4-year deal or something. So Shez and Baxty said. NASA, no one has seen Leclerc perform with his new haircut. Mate, Samson and Delilah, and Ferrari, I think, are not consistent, especially with their race pace. So I remember, Henron, to that Ferrari thing, why I got so gassed up on Ferrari, there's a very famous Spanish journalist called Albert Fabrica, and he's got the inside track on Scuderia Ferrari, and he spoke in glowing terms, this time last year, by the way, about the stability that the new management has brought, Frederic Vasseur's inherent uppermost ceiling as far as his ability to manage a team and fix for some of the fatal flaws that Scuderia Ferrari have exhibited for the past however many years. He sounded like he knew that the inside line was that was all over, but this was last year. Now you can make the argument that in 2023 they made less mistakes, but were they perfect? Absolutely bloody not. No chance. They weren't even near perfect. They were still making mistakes. Charles Leclerc was still error prone. Okay, so he was very good in like Q4, but you got to be good all year. This is how you win a chat. Okay, look, Scuderia Ferrari and their rules of their competence. That's not how you win a championship, right? I say you can win races in isolation, but you don't win championships without consistency, making so many unforced errors. Red Bull can show you the blueprints. They've written the handbook on that because they don't make mistakes. You can count the errors, total unforced ones that they made last year on one hand. Probably even a few fingers, less than that. Don't make mistakes. Bogle, Charles Leclerc is not him. I don't disagree, man. If McLaren could pull off Mercedes, certainly would have. Ebo, take it will happen. Jeez. Benzo, let me read out a couple more. Rory, what's going on, my guy? Happy New Year, bro. Hope you and your family love the new background. Catch you later. You're a legend, Rory. I hope you're good, brother, and I hope you had a fantastic New Year. And that goes out to each and every single one of you in a great festive period. Henry says, do you think it's true that Red Bull have started their 2025 car and had some sort of... So look at this, Henry. Look, I can't say for sure. I can't be so definitive because I don't know the inside track. But is it beyond the realm of possibility? So dominant were they last year that they've already got one eye on 2020. And even, okay, Henron, I think it's 2026's car that if anything, they'll be diverting resources towards, because I've heard a lot of people talking about Mercedes, that if Mercedes don't get it right this year, then strategically, they'll be best placed to scrap next year and to start focusing on 2026, given the big rule and reg change again, right? Got to be focused on you got to be efficient with your resource each and every single time with the big new rule and reg change. And that's the concern. As a Lewis Hamilton fan, with time, a very, very finite resource at this stage in Lewis's career, that Mercedes car needs to bang. It needs to bang. They need to have made some very good design philosophy decisions, and I'm hoping, I'm hoping that they've minimised the noddy ones. That's all that I can say about that, because it's too early in 2024 for me to start getting teary-eyed about lost time, especially on Sir Lewis Hamilton's birthday, I'll read out a couple more and then I'm running away. I've gone long again. He said 45 minutes and it's been 55, but you guys know the drill. 60 minutes or less. When I say 45, you got to rebase Cameron's timing for an extra 50 minutes always. Gotta stop. The next one's going to be 45 minutes, I promise. Benzo Lewis said the first time he felt the rear of the W13-14 car was Austin 2023. Mercedes provided with a car with a planted rear who produced the greatest race pace in history this year. Benzo, I think it's more than that though. The travails of the 13 and 14 weren't just about seating position, right? The biggest problem with 13-14, if memory serves, is the instability of the rear, A, on turning, and B, at the apex. They just couldn't predict what the car, like the handling dynamic changed from corner to corner, right? They couldn't predict it. That car, the fundamental concerns that those drivers had with that car is that the performance curve was too peaky. on any given Sunday, it could be fast. We saw at Brazil in 2022 when George nailed it, Red Bull setup issues notwithstanding. But you just can't even in anything shy of optimum conditions, tyres, suspension setup, ambience temperature, track temperature, that car couldn't reach the uppermost peaks of its performance curve. So 99 times out of 100, it was a dog. 1 time out of 100, it was going to look fast. We saw it towards the end of last season, right, when Lewis was trying to chase down Max Verstappen. All of a sudden, you're thinking, oh my God, that car, they were onto something with that design philosophy. But what you got to do, right, is what Red Bull have done. And I think they've been very practical about looking at the corners that occur most frequently on the 2023 calendar and tailoring your design spec for that type of corner, right? Medium to fast speed corners. Think Maggots, think Beckett's, think like it's always that, maybe not as fast as Eau Rouge, but that's the most frequently type of corner that occurs on the calendar in 2023. There's no point like setting up your car or building a fundamental design philosophy that goes well around Monaco. Because where else is that going to help you? Austria maybe, Hungary maybe. But those are that's 3 of 23 tracks. You got to make your car quickest for the most frequently occurring set of track circumstances, right? And Mercedes didn't do that, sadly. But I digress, peddlers. Right, guys and girls, I know, but I can't even afford to get a cold going into this week of month end. It's been lingering. It's kind of like there in the background. I think I just need a good night's kip and then I'll be good. But it has been there. I thought that I'd enhanced my resistance to the cold by having contrast showers. I think I have, but still. We went out yesterday and it was a bit of a late night. Brain, 2024 make a break for Mercedes. Let's see how the engineers put their heads together. Absolutely. I would get off Charles if I were for Bogle, bloody Nora, well, and sign Lando instead. It's a bold move. I think he can be developed. I don't want to wield the sword of Damocles over Charles's head just yet, but I'm just saying that to self-critique, I was a bit too quick about crowning Charles Leclerc as the next one. I think I was a couple years too early, but he looks so good in 2021. That's the truth. And it's incredible, fast race IQ, banging out Max Verstappen on race restarts. When he must be the next one, said Cameron. Not true. Not true. But happy family, happy New Year. But I hope you're good, man. It's going to be a good year. Lennart, apologies, Lennart, for not reading out all your comments before, man, but I'm going to be here another 60 minutes if I do that. Slope out. I find it amusing how Toto and Lewis are crapping on their team and finished. Oh, mate. Slope out. I can't even. Brain, I want to see Charles in a car where he does not have to overdrive. Maybe then we can see if it's true race pace. I don't disagree, Brain. You're onto something. Let me go back and read one of Lennart's. No, he's not better than Lewis last year. Talking about Oscar and Lewis. But is he as fast as Lewis? I'd say possibly if he works out. Yeah, Oscar and Lewis chat. I'm not sure he's quicker than it. Lewis's quickness. I've gone over, haven't I? Right, guys, I'm going to run away. I'll say this finally and then I'll run. I think people, in hindsight, underestimate just how quick Lewis Hamilton was. Now, as an elder statesman, with the passage of time, he's become more of a Sunday merchant, right? In that he's keen, he's very focused on 25 points on a Sunday more than like putting it on pole. Back in the day, however, you guys can go back and watch this back. I'll never forget Josh Revel, the legend that is, one of the goats of YouTube, sent me a clip on it was like the end of Silverstone qualifying in 2007. The dude, and he did one of the old Senna Schumacher things where he was like last one round in quali and dropped it on there like he wasn't on pole, and then the very last lap of the very last session of the day dropped it on pole, and it was just like the commentators just gave you this moment that it felt like a coming of age. Like it felt like Lewis's thing was the hype going to be real? People in GP2, people on the paddock knew about him. He was on the front page of F1 magazine, like all that good stuff. But what was the hype? This is the question that this is the most frequently asked question, right? Whether it's Charles, Lando, George, Lewis, Oscar, is the hype real? Are these drivers going to live up to their not insubstantial potential? And that was Lewis that day at Silverstone in 2007. That was him showing you that he had all of the potential and was about to live up to it in real time, not in a couple of years' time, but now. Faced with one of the most formidable drivers in Fernando Alonso in 2007 that I've ever seen, didn't faze the chap at all. So good was he in that McLaren, so reassured was he. I think that's my cue, peddlers. I'm going to run away. Thank you so much for joining. If you are listening on our podcasting platform, leave me a comment. Drop a 5-star review, por favor, because it all helps. Thank you guys who are watching on the YouTubes, who are watching live in particular. I appreciate each and every single one of you ad infinitum. I'll be back same time, same place next week at the very latest. But between now and next time, as always, look, but never stare. Peace.